Hello, good afternoon, everyone, on a beautifully sunny Saturday here in Waukesha. I am Bonnie Bird, the director at the Waukesha County Historical Society and Museum. So excited to welcome you here today if you're viewing live, or in the future if you're coming back to this program. Hosting today for Waukesha Preservation Alliance's annual Preservation Days. This year, like so many other things, we are doing our events in a bit of an adapted way, including our first ever live stream program here for you this afternoon. So hopefully give some great information for you, things you might know, maybe some new information about the historic properties and districts here in the city of Waukesha, maybe get you inspired to go out on your next walk and take in one of those districts. But I'm going to bring in here our presenter for the program today, Lisa Salb. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, everybody.
All right, Lisa is likewise a member of the Waukesha Preservation Alliance. She's also the chair of the City of Waukesha's Landmarks Commission. So she's got an incredible amount of knowledge that she will be sharing with us today. I know she's got a lot of slides to get through, a lot of really awesome pictures of some of the properties too. Please do, if you have questions along the way, add those into the comments, please. I will be keeping track of those, and at the end of Lisa's program, we'll go through and answer those questions for you. So please do drop those in along the way, and we will try and get back to you with answers. And with that, without any further ado, Lisa, I will hand it over to you, let you get your program going here today.
All right. Well, thank you, Bonnie, and thank you to the Waukesha County Historical Society Museum for hosting the event for today. And thank you, everybody, for being here. As Bonnie said, it's such a gorgeous day outside. So if you are not seeing live, hopefully you can watch it on a rainy day then. So I'd like to start by saying my first involvement with historic preservation was back in October of 2012 when my husband Bob and I went to our first Waukesha Preservation Alliance meeting. And they were going to be doing some work on a historic house down on Main Street. And what we really wanted, though, was to see inside. Now, don't judge me. I know some of you feel the same way about these historic properties. You want to see what's going on there. But what we did was we volunteered to help clean up some of the landscaping. And eventually we did get to see inside that building. I've got some good stories, like how WPA President Mary Emery and I got locked inside the building and we couldn't get out. I mean, maybe if there's time at the end, I can share stories like that with you. But I'm going to share my screen here, and then we will start the slideshow and get going. All right. Well, soon after that, Bob and I became members of the Waukesha Preservation Alliance, also known as the WPA. Every year, except for in 2020, the WPA hosts an event, as Bonnie had said, called Preservation Days, and we put those events out in a guidebook. It's held annually in May, which is National Preservation Month, and typically it's the third weekend in May. A Waukesha neighborhood is chosen and its historic properties are highlighted. Why, you ask? Well, talking about the history of an area gets people thinking about how their neighborhoods were formed and how they developed over the years. It helps to generate a sense of place and a source of pride. During Preservation Days before the pandemic, there have been walking tours and open houses where hundreds of people have come to see inside historic properties. See, I'm not the only one. But we've had seminars and speakers, we've had art projects, historic games for kids, and spring tours. Here is May of 2014, where Bob led a Springs bus tour as a Preservation Days event. And I tried to be Vanna White by walking up and down the bumpy bus aisle while holding posters of some of the old spring photos. Maybe some of you were on that tour. And I only fell on one gentleman, but we knew him, so I think that was okay. Almost all of our Preservation Day events have been free, so everyone can participate. In the past, business sponsors have donated prizes or funds to have their logo included on the scavenger hunt flyer activity. This year, the scavenger hunt is available on the WPA website at waukeshapreservation.org. Designer Eric Endress just received the 2021 Landmarks Commission Certificate of Merit Award for 8 years of hard work creating this fabulous artwork for the WPA. Congratulations, Eric! The WPA's mission statement is, working together with both the public and private sectors, it is our mission to build upon the foundations of Waukesha's great cultural heritage, to grow an ever richer, more vibrant community proud of its past while nurturing its future. So partnering together today with the Waukesha County Historical Society and Museum, we put together this online presentation for Preservation Days 2021 and for Waukesha's 125th anniversary celebration. So how about we start with a trivia question? What is recognized as the first effort in historic preservation restoration in our country? Any guesses? Well, that would be the rescue and restoration of Mount Vernon, George Washington's home in Virginia. In 1853, the Mount Vernon Ladies Association purchased the property, supervised its restoration, and managed the site. It still continues today and is America's oldest historic preservation organization, according to the official guidebook. The association has often served as a model for historic sites nationwide. Over the next 100 years, steps towards preservation were taken in America. And those steps all led up to the establishment of the National Historic Preservation Act by Congress in 1966. It declared that the spirit and direction of the nation are founded upon and reflected in its historic heritage, and the historical and cultural foundations of the nation should be preserved as a living part of our community life and development in order to give a sense of orientation to the American people. As a quick overview, there are federal, state, and city levels of preservation. And as Bonnie mentioned, I'm on the City of Waukesha Landmarks Commission. I was appointed by the mayor in 2016 and became the chair in 2017. And this photo is also from 2017, back in my blonde days, at my son's wedding in Virginia, where as a side trip, Bob and I visited Mount Vernon and learned about those awesome ladies. Here are some of the roles that these different governmental levels hold. The U.S. Department of Interior is where the Secretary of the Interior sets the standards, which are the guidelines for historic preservation. The National Park Service identifies, nominates, and lists property in the National Register of Historic Places. They partner with federal and state officers. The State Historic Preservation Office administers the Wisconsin portion of the National Register of Historic Places, and they partner with the National Park Service and manage the state register. And the Landmarks Commission reviews the applications for certificates of appropriateness and awards paint and repair grants. And that's for properties in the historic districts and local landmarks within the city. The Secretary of Interior was authorized within that National Historic Preservation Act to maintain the National Register of Historic Places. So what's on the register? That would be districts, sites, buildings, structures, and objects that are significant in American history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, and culture. Being over 50 qualifies you as being historic these days. But besides being old, the register listings also have to be pretty special too. Outside consultants identified Wisconsin's historic buildings as one of its greatest assets in the Central City Master Plan. Studies by the National Trust of Historic Preservation have helped to develop a list of benefits of historic preservation. Here's that first benefit. It is good economic development. Historic designations of neighborhoods and downtown enhance and protect property values. For example, the studies show that in Nebraska, historic preservation generated $170 million per year, and between 2001 and 2005, an estimated $1.5 billion was spent on rehabilitation of buildings. It's important to note that being on the National Register of Historic Places is an honor and carries no direct restrictions. It's a common misconception that being on the register protects the historic property from demolition, and that is not correct. Only a local landmarks designation protects that building from demolition and inappropriate changes. This was a hard lesson we learned in August of 2018 when the Casper Singer House was demolished on the Catholic Memorial Campus to become green space. It was on the National Register of Historic Places, but it did not have the protection of the local landmarks status, and now it's lost forever. But on a happier note, let's look at our National Register properties that are still standing. The city of Waukesha has 9 historic districts that are on the National Register of Historic Places and are also local landmarks. There are just a few definitions that I should give you first, since I'll be referring to them. As mentioned earlier, the Landmarks Commission is in charge of certificates of appropriateness. Well, what's that? Also known as a COA, it's an approval required when proposed work will affect significant protected architectural features on the exterior of a historic structure or a property. That includes additions, demolitions, new construction, and changes of architectural features such as stoops and cornices. Within the districts are contributing and non-contributing properties. What does that mean? Well, it's a classification. Contributing properties add to the historic association, architectural importance, or the archaeological value for which the district is important. It must have been present during the district's historic period and must physically retain the features representing that era. This property can be a building, a structure, a site, or an object. Non-contributing properties are most likely newer or altered and have lost many of the historic features. For example, many of the historic houses also have historic carriage barns that are considered contributing. However, some properties have newer garages and those are not contributing. Every listing on the National Register has a period of significance, which is just what it sounds like. It's the length of time when a property was associated with important events, activities, or persons, or attained the characteristics which qualify it for the National Register listing. It usually begins with the date when the significant activities or events began, giving the property its historic significance, and that's often the date of construction. All right, now that you know those terms, we can go ahead and take a look at Waukesha's historic districts. The Macaw Street Historic District is the largest at 143 properties. Its period of significance is 1855 to 1935. It has several areas of significance, including architecture, education, and politics and government. Some of the architectural styles you'll see are Queen Anne and Greek Revival. It was listed on the National Register in December of 1983. Here is the Mary and Francis H. Gulp House. Its architectural style is Queen Anne, and it was built in 1896 of clapboard. We asked the owner if she would be willing to give us a sneak peek inside, and she said yes. So here are some beautiful leaded glass windows. Just look at the details on this wood staircase. Now that's a window transom. It was originally on the exterior until the porch was added on later. Thank you, Bonnie, for letting us see inside your historic house.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the Welter and Jessie Sleep House. Its style is Georgian Revival, and it was built in 1880 of cream city brick. However, the house was originally an Italianate built by Frank Lyman. He was the conductor with the Milwaukee Road. Here we have a before and after. Welter and Jessie Sleep were responsible for the radical changes made to the house in the 1930s. Jessie was one of 3 sisters in Waukesha that all launched extensive remodeling projects on their home. They were the daughters of Conrad Hardle, the man that Hardle football field is named after. It is thought that the sisters were competing with each other. When one sister would get chandeliers from Europe, then the other sisters had to go to Europe and get the chandeliers too. It sounds like there was a bit of sibling rivalry going on. This is the Henry Bowron Samuel A. Randall House. Its architectural style is Greek Revival, and it was built in 1855 of limestone. You can see from these photos in the Wisconsin Architectural and History Inventory that there used to be a pretty significant front porch that is now missing. It was described as a veranda that spans the front of the house. It is made up of a flat roof supported by Tuscan columns sitting on stone piers. The porch wasn't original, but because it was built within the period of significance, it should have been retained. It had been removed before the property received its local landmark designation. The Architecture and History Inventory, or AHI, is an excellent resource for old photos and information. I Google Ahi, like the tuna, and then WI for Wisconsin. I then type in the address or the house name in the search bar on their website. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see the porch veranda put back on there again someday? Here is the Alexander Randall House. Its architectural style is Greek Revival, and it dates back to the 1840s. Alexander Randall was the governor of Wisconsin from 1858 to 62. He focused on the moral issues of slavery in the South. In response to President Lincoln's call to arms, he helped organize regiments and training camps. His house originally stood on East Avenue, where the Northwestern Railroad track passes through. It was moved to Macaw Street, and this photograph shows it in the early 1900s. This is the Alex R. and Marie Morton house, one of my many favorites. Just look at that sunroom. Marie Morton was one of those three sisters mentioned earlier. This house was built in 1897. Originally, the style was Queen Anne. Let's go back. There it is now, and there it was. It, however, was remodeled in 1930 and became a Georgian revival. The architect is Hugo Heuser. And in case you're wondering, the third sister lived on East Avenue, and there's an apartment building located there now. Here are some of the lovely homes in the Macaw Street district. I won't have time to go through them all individually. Perhaps in the future you can attend a WPA walking tour and get more of the details. The second benefit of historic preservation is it increases property values. For example, a study of 9 cities in Texas showed that a local historic designation increased property value by 5 to 20%. The East Broadway Avenue Historic District has beautiful homes on the east side of Waukesha. Its period of significance is 1870 to 1939. Edward Porter sold his farmland for development. Its area of significance is for architecture. Those styles you'll see are late 19th and 20th century American. It was listed on the National Register in March of 1996. Architects noted are Dickon Bowron and Hugo Heuser. Here is the Edward Porter House, also known as George B. Harris House. Its architectural style is Tudor Revival and it's stucco. It was built in the 1870s, but it was substantially remodeled in 1908 and again in 1930. Here's its carriage house and large shed, and they are listed as contributing on the register. I was inside Mr. Porter's house when it was on the market last year. Would you like to see inside? Here is the beautiful dining room with the big bay window and wood details at the ceiling, and it has a tile floor. The library has an arched ceiling, and there's also a hardwood floor. Just look at those windows. The wooden bookcases are built in. The house has a new owner now, and he has already received his certificate of appropriateness to start working on the exterior of the home. Next, we have the William Bowman House. The architectural style is American Foursquare, and it was built in 1931 of stone. It was open for tours during Preservation Days in 2017, and it has a phenomenal dining room. I asked the owner, and she sent some photos for us. The built-in china cabinet is huge and amazing. And here is their everyday setup, but they can open it up, and they've already fit 24 people in there for tea. Here is the Welter R. Meyer House. Its style is Tudor Revival, and it is stone. It was built in 1928, and the architect is Dickon Bowron. And here are some more photos of the lovely houses in the East Avenue Broadway Historic District. You'll see some Spanish-style architecture with tile roofs in the neighborhood. Here is the Dr. Albert Hodgson House. It is Spanish colonial and is stucco. It was built in 1924, and the architect is Russ and Phillip. And if you look up the hill, you'll see another tile roof up there. This is the Everett P. Barrett House, further in on North Porter Avenue. It's just outside of the district, but it made the National Register on its own merits. Its architectural style is French Provincial, and it was built in 1940. It is designated for the architectural style and also for the method of construction. It is almost built entirely out of reinforced concrete. Everett Barrett, imagine this, was a local concrete contractor. The third benefit of historic preservation is it revitalizes Main Street. It attracts people to live in the community, and it also contributes to the quality of life there. I'd want to live in that Broadway Avenue neighborhood, wouldn't you? Our next historic district is Caples Park. It is named after Dr. Byron Caples. He was a prominent neurologist and a psychiatrist in Waukesha and built the Waukesha Springs Sanitarium in 1903 as a large resort hospital facility. He bought the Sanger's Farm in 1912 to subdivide the land, and he formed Caples Park in 1925. The district's period of significance is 1926 to 1938. Its area of significance is architecture, and styles you'll see are Tudor Revival and Colonial Revival. Here is the Gothard Hind House. Its architectural style is Mediterranean Revival, and it is brick. It was built in 1931, and here we see another tile roof. This is the Curtis C. Callow House. Its style is Tudor Revival, and it's brick and stucco. It was built in 1928 with an addition in 1954. The architect is Chris Holtz. Here is the Oscar G. Laneboyder House. Its architectural style is vernacular Tudor, and it is stucco and wood. Its nomination papers state that vernacular is a title given to structures which do not fall into any of the high style classifications. This type of building was designed by a local craftsman with no formal training, or it simply grew from the contractor and owner collaboration. Kind of sounds like they winged it as they went along. This was also built in 1928. On the roundabout, you'll see the Macaw House. Its architectural style is also Tudor Revival, and it is brick and stucco. It too was built in 1928, and that was a very busy year apparently in this neighborhood. Here are some more photos of the charming homes that you'll see in the Caples Park Historic District. It's such a lovely neighborhood. The fourth benefit of historic preservation is it conserves resources. Rehabilitating historic property promotes energy efficiency by preserving the energy already represented by existing buildings, known as embodied energy, rather than expending additional energy for new construction. Did you know that demolition or construction waste makes up 25% of landfill material? Historic preservation reduces waste and helps save money by repairing and reusing existing buildings instead of tearing them down and building new ones. The College Avenue Historic District is next, and it includes part of the Carroll University campus. The district's period of significance is 1850 to 1932. It has several areas of significance: architecture, education, and industry. Architectural styles you'll see are late Victorian and late 19th and 20th century revivals, and it made the register on October of 1983. Carroll University has been a champion for historic preservation, as you'll soon see. Carroll College was chartered by the territorial legislature on January 31st, 1846. It is Wisconsin's oldest college and is said to be named for Charles Carroll, signer of the Declaration of Independence. This postcard is circa 1915. Here's Rankin Hall. Its architectural style is Tudor Revival, and it is limestone. It was built in 1906. In 2019, its restoration won the George Gunn Award for Excellence in Architectural Preservation and Historic Restoration from the Waukesha Landmarks Commission. This is Ganfield Gymnasium. It was built in 1923. Its top-to-bottom restoration was awarded the George Gunn Award for Excellence in 2018. Here's Old Main. The original building was constructed in 1852, but a chimney fire burned it to the ground. This newer building opened in 1887. In 2001 to 2002, it had a $4 million renovation. You probably recognize the Walter S. Chandler House. The architectural style is Victorian Gothic, and it was built in 1870. Chandler was a wealthy lumber baron, and no expense was spared. The architect is Edward Townsend Mix. Mix designed the Mitchell and Mackey buildings in downtown Milwaukee. And at the Soldiers' Home, he designed Old Main and the Governor's Mansion. The house was open for tours during Preservation Days in 2019, and as the guidebook stated, it is one of the finest and best preserved Victorian Gothic frame houses in southeast Wisconsin. Here's a look inside with some photos that I took during that tour in 2019. There are so many more wonderful properties in the College Avenue Historic District like these. Also, if you're interested, there's a Carroll University history walking tour that you can stroll through on your computer. The fifth benefit of historic preservation is it attracts investment. It's a differentiated project which attracts capital. The unique aspects of our historic resources make them stand out, and they are not easily duplicated. And I believe that Carroll University has helped to prove this point with the investment it has made in its campus. Next up, we have the Lachlan Avenue Historic District. Its period of significance is 1880 to 1926. Its areas of significance are architecture and commerce. Its styles you'll see are Queen Anne and Classical Revival. It was listed on the National Register in October of 1983. Here we have the Andrew Wadsworth Moses Weeks House. Its architectural style is neoclassical. Aren't those columns amazing? But originally it was a Queen Anne. It was built in 1895 and it is clapboard. The remodel was sometime after 1906. This is the G Osborne House. He was the city librarian. Its style is Queen Anne and it is clapboard. It was built in 1900. I love its old-fashioned garden. Being on the corner lot helps set the tone for the scale of the neighborhood and is considered a pivotal building in the district according to the AHRI. Well, here we have a historic house without a name. That actually happens. Its architectural style is also Queen Anne and it is clapboard. It was built in 1900 and it also has a lovely garden. This is a photo of the same house from the AHI that is dated in May of 1977. Go back one. What a difference a few paint colors can make on a building. By the way, the Landmarks Commission only considers colors for COAs in areas that are considered more permanent, like brick and mortar or roofing material colors. They will not tell you what paint color you have to use or cannot use. Just a little further west from this district, there are several houses that are on the National Register for their own merits. This is the Dr. Fc Elliott House. Its style is Queen Anne and it is clapboard, and it was built in 1891. This Queen Anne house is listed on the AHI as the Camellia Smith House. Sometimes you'll find discrepancies that are discovered as these in-depth research projects take place. WPA President Mary Emery has found that on April 23rd, 1883, Frank Putney sold this property to Camellia Smith, spelled with a P as in Pam. However, the next deed was on the very same day, and it showed that Camellia Smith then sold it to Virginia Lawrence. So this house should actually be named the George and Virginia Lawrence House. Corrections can be submitted to the Waukesha Historical Society for review. And the number that you see on that porch gable is not the address, it notes when the house was constructed. The Perry Grace House is also a Queen Anne that was built in 1888. John Deck was the architect and the builder. It has elements of the stick style on the home, and it has a very cool tower. What's up there, you wonder? Well, how about I show you? In the second floor apartment, there is a narrow door that opens up to a very narrow staircase. It leads up to a third floor tower with an open balcony rail and a wood floor. At the top is a little room with a view, with plaster on the walls, an original light fixture, and fancy wood trim. I've always loved towers. Thank you to the Glatzels for letting me up there so that I could show you. That brings us to the sixth benefit of historic preservation. It attracts visitors. 78% of U.S. leisure travelers participate in cultural and/or heritage activities when traveling. The studies show that these cultural heritage travelers spend more per trip and they take more trips. The Madison Street Historic District is near and dear to my heart because it's my neighborhood. It has two periods of significance, 1875 to 1926 and 1913 to 23. Its area of significance is architecture. Those styles you'll see are Queen Anne and Italianate. It was listed on the National Register in March of 1990. Noted architects are John Deck and Samuel Dodd. Here is the beautiful Captain Elihu Enos house. It is a beautiful Queen Anne and it is clapboard. It was built in 1895 with Samuel Dodd as the architect. Enos was a Civil War veteran, farmer, postmaster, and the first county superintendent of schools. Here is the Deck Stevens Wheeler's house. Its architectural style is Queen Anne, and it was built in 1880 by John Deck, who lived there, and later sold it to William Stevens. It just won the 2021 Gunn Award for Excellence in Historic Preservation Restoration from the Landmarks Commission. Congratulations. The Madison Street Historic District has a historic site. It's the Little Pocket Park on the corner of Madison and Randall Streets. Many don't know that this city park is called Parkview Mark. In 1843, it was the location of the Hill Schoolhouse. After the original Blair School was built in 1890, the land was deeded from the Joint School District No. 1 to the trustees of the Waukesha Village for use as a park, and it has been one ever since. The Tower Hill Neighborhood Association is working towards getting the site a historical marker. Across the street is the Senator William Blair House. For Preservation Days in 2023, there was an open house there. I volunteered to be a docent to share its history with those that came for a tour. Little did I know that in 3 years' time, Bob and I would be the new owners. We saw on the Facebook page for the Waukesha Preservation Alliance that it was for sale. And since 2016, we have been restoring it to be a bed and breakfast. Its architectural style is Italianate with Samuel Dodd as the architect. The original single-story house was built in the late 1840s. This Cream City brick addition went up in 1876. William Blair's great-great-granddaughter shared this photo with us. The property is also considered significant because of Blair himself. He opened the Blair Foundry, a woolen mill called the Waukesha County Manufacturing Company, and was one of the founders and presidents of the 1855 Waukesha County Bank, the county's first financial institution, which became the National Bank. William Blair was the village trustee, village president, and state senator. Would you like to see what we've been up to inside? Here's the solarium, which was added around 1920, where son Henry Blair looked out these windows at the wonderful view of downtown Waukesha. He was the mayor from 1922 to 1926. The dining room has an arched ceiling like the Bowman house and plaster details. And here is the foyer, where the stained glass transom and side lights were returned to the house and reinstalled with the front door that we found in the basement. Bob and I have found that it's true that preserving historic buildings does create that sense of place and source of pride in a community. We see comments on our Facebook page from people that are so very happy that the property is being restored, and we look forward to helping attract visitors to our city. The seventh benefit of historic preservation is that it uses existing public investments. It directs development to places where infrastructure is already in place. The Wisconsin Avenue Historic District starts off our downtown section and it has only 3 properties. Its period of significance is 1870 to 1917. Its area of significance is architecture engineering. It was listed on the National Register in October of 1983. Here is the Richard Street John Waite House. Its architectural style is High Victorian Gothic. It is cream city brick and was built in 1880. This is the F Showerman House. Its style is Second Empire. It is clapboard and was built in 1900. And the third is the Samuel Hadfield Guest House. Its architectural style is also Second Empire. It is clapboard as well and was built in 1883. The 300 block of Wisconsin Avenue has 2 historic sites that are also on the National Register of Historic Places. The first we'll talk about is the Cutler Mound Group. Its period of significance is 499 BC to 0 AD. The area of significance is archaeology, prehistoric. The 3 mounds were built for burials, but were not made by the Potawatomi. It is thought they were probably made by the Native Americans of the woodlands. There's a sign there that reads, Prehistoric Mounds, marked May 26, 1906, the Women's Club, Waukesha. Way to go, ladies. The city of Waukesha at one time had 55 mounds on 11 sites, and Waukesha County once had 411 mounds. The second historic site is where Cutler Homestead was located. Morris Cutler was the first white settler in the Waukesha area. In May of 1834, he founded Prairie Village, which is now the city of Waukesha. And that brown sign there is one of those historic markers that I was talking about earlier. His original house was built in 1845 and has been moved to the corner of Central and Maple Avenues. Its style is Greek Revival. Its area of significance includes architecture and exploration settlement. It's on the National Register on its own merit, and like the Blair House, it qualifies because of the significance of the person. Across the street from Cutler Park, you can't miss the First Baptist Church. Its area of significance is architecture, and it was built in 1872. The style is High Victorian Gothic, and it is stone. It was and still is used as a religious facility, and the architect is Edward Townsend Mix and H.C. Handels. In fact, there are several historic properties near the park that are on the National Register on their own merits. Here is the William G. Mann House. Its architectural style is listed as Queen Anne. The Morse House Hotel was built on this site in 1880, but arson caused the kitchen fire in 1896 and it was a total loss. A new house was built on the corner of the lot, and the architect is C.C. Anderson. In the hottest of summers, the grass actually turns brown around the old perimeter of the hotel, and I've seen it myself. Look at this. The Lotz family became the owners in 2010, and they provided these old photographs. Wouldn't it be amazing if they could put this gazebo back on the front porch in the future? The Waukesha Women's Club, the same group from the mound sign, was in the house from 1927 to 1983. Then the Maple Avenue Mennonite Church was there from 1983 to 2010. The Mann House was open for tours during Preservation Days in 2015, and this is that same room that the ladies were pictured in. I have a few more photos from the event to show you. Here is the Charles E. Nelson House. Its architectural style is listed as Tudor Revival, and it is limestone. It was built in 1910, and the architect is Fernakis and Kramer. This is the Toten Butterfield House. It is Greek Revival and was built in 1850. Here is the David J. Hammock House. It is Gothic Revival of Cream City brick and was constructed in 1876. Oops, how did that get in there? That was lunch break. Delicious, but not historic. These are the Arlington Apartments, and the style is Tudor Revival. The brick building dates to 1928, and the architect is George Seipel. Another house you might recognize is the Andrew Frame House. It is a gorgeous Italianate of Cream City brick. It was built in 1879, and the architect is Edward Townsend Mix. It is also historically significant because of Andrew J. Frame. He was the longtime president of the Waukesha National Bank. Upon William Blair's death in 1880, Frame was named president and remained so until 1919. In 1926, Andrew Frame donated the land along the Fox River, which is now known as Frame Park. I've been inside the Frame House recently, and I can show you some photos if you're interested. It won the 2020 George Gunn Award for Excellence in Historic Preservation Restoration from the Landmarks Commission. And in April, it also won a state award, the 2021 Award of Excellence in Restoration from the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions. In 2019, the fourth-story Belvedere, or cupola, was reconstructed using historic photographs for reference. That November, it was lifted into place by a big crane. But this is Karen McDonald. She is the great-great-granddaughter of Andrew Frame. The Belvedere is beautiful inside and has an awesome view from up there. A set of doors allows you to go out to the roof deck. There will be an open house here where you can see exciting details like this rotating bookshelf doorway. It's the weekend of October 9th and 10th and is part of Waukesha Unlocked event for the city's 125th anniversary. So mark your calendars now. The eighth benefit of historic preservation is that it supports small businesses. Historic properties make great locations for small independent businesses and startups. The Five Points Downtown Historic District is at Waukesha's infamous intersection. Its period of significance is 1857 to 1930. Its two areas of significance are architecture and commerce. The style you see is late Victorian. It was listed on the National Register in October of 1983. If you complete this year's WPA scavenger hunt, you could be in the running for a Preservation Days prize. 5 lucky winners will receive a private downtown walking tour given by historian Marilyn Hagerstrand at a future date. Her brain holds decades of research information, and she'll have fascinating details to share at that time. The scavenger hunt again is available at the WPA website at waukeshapreservation.org. Here is the Nickel Building. Its architectural style is listed as Queen Anne Commercial Design, and it is limestone. It was built by Addison C. Nickel in 1901 for use as the post office for Waukesha. From 1902 to 1914, the first floor was used as that post office. This is the W.T. Lyle Building. Its style is also listed as Queen Anne with a double front storefront commercial design. It is brick and was built in 1893. Its historic use is as a funeral parlor. W.T. Lyle was an undertaker. In 1910, it was expanded and the facade was made more elaborate. Here it is in its setting on Clinton Street. There are so many historical resources downtown that I'll have to pick and choose which ones to show you, or we might be here until Memorial Day. So this is Main Street in downtown Waukesha. On the far right is the John J. Clark Dry Goods Store. Its architectural style is Romanesque Revival. It was built in 1888 of limestone. To the left of it is the Calvin Jackson Block, also known as Lang's Menswear. Its style is Italianate. It was built in 1858 of limestone. Right next door is the Putney Block. Its period of significance is 1850 to 1924. Its architectural styles are Italianate and Queen Anne. It is limestone, and the architect is Stephen B. Shipman. Its historic use is commerce, trade for business, department store, and professional use. A social use of meeting hall is also mentioned. Around the block is the Masonic Temple. Its architectural style is neoclassical and limestone. It was built in 1904, and the architect is A.L. Pleco. Its historic use is listed as a meeting hall. The Masonic Temple received the 2021 Landmarks Commission Certificate of Merit Award for their dedication to maintaining the property. Great job. Right next door is the Columbia Block. Its architectural style is commercial vernacular, and it is brick. It was built in 1895. Its historic use is retail building. Also, the 1922 Sanborn fire insurance map notes city offices and hall on the second floor. Around the block, you'll see the Dr. David Roberts building. Its style is Mediterranean Revival, and it is brick. It was built in 1927. Dr. Roberts had his veterinary office and lab there, and it was also a rental property. He had a national reputation for his care of cattle, but may be more well known for his tie to several scandals. Unfortunately, his wife, Mary Newman Roberts, was murdered in 1917 by his female acquaintance, Miss Grace Lux. The ninth benefit of historic preservation is it creates jobs. In a typical rehabilitation project, labor is 60 to 70% of the total cost. Those laborers are mostly hired locally and then in turn spend their money locally. We are at our ninth and last district, the Black Sea Historic District. Its period of significance is 1870 to 1945. Its two areas of significance are architecture and commerce trade. The architectural styles you'll see here are good examples of commercial vernacular and early 20th century. It was listed on the National Register in January of 1996. Noted architects are Siebert and Kegler and the Email Construction Company. This is the Andrews Building at the corner of West Main Street and West Broadway Avenue. It dates to 1914 and the architectural style is Prairie School. This brick property has a historic use as retail. A certificate of appropriateness for the blue awnings over the windows was approved by the Landmarks Commission, and it really helps to unify the space on both sides of the building. Here is the Metropolitan Store building. Its architectural style is 20th century commercial, and it is brick. It was built in 1929. Its historic use is a retail building, and it's where we had our Preservation Days art event a few years back at the Stroke of Genius. I just love the tin ceiling here. There are many historic properties near downtown that are on the National Register on their own merits. I'll quickly show you a few of them. To the west, there is the Yankee Saloon. Its architectural style is Queen Anne, and it was built in 1892 of limestone. It has an unusual use of granite and limestone on the facade. This is the Pope Blacksmith Shop, circa 1892. Its style is commercial vernacular, and it is stone. To the east is the National Hotel. The architectural style is Italianate, and it is limestone. It was built by John Sperber in 1871, and here is a photo of the National Hotel by Warren S. O'Brien that is circa 1900. I'm sure that you'll recognize the old Waukesha County Courthouse. Its architectural style is listed as Richardsonian Romanesque, and it is limestone. It was built in 1893. The architect is Rowan Kirsch. Its historic use is courthouse. In this photo on the right, you'll see a jail, and that was built in 1885 by the architect of H.C. Cup before the courthouse. This is where Grace Lusk served her murder time. A connecting wing and a newer jail addition were built in the 1830s. It also won a 2020 George Gunn Award for excellence in historic preservation and restoration from the Landmarks Commission, and the 2021 Award of Excellence in Restoration from the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions. The building is the home of the Waukesha County Historical Society and Museum, where they are now featuring a history of Waukesha in 100 exhibits. If you haven't seen it already, you need to go. The old courtroom has been transformed into the historic courthouse 1893, and it's a wedding, performance, and event venue. And then the building wings are now apartments. This Greek revival is the William P. Sloan House. It was built in 1841 and was the first stone house in Waukesha County. Here is the Patrick J. Buckley House. This is Queen Anne, and it was built in 1894. This is the Joseph H. Hadfield House. It's Gothic and was built in 1876. This beautiful Tudor revival is the Frank H. Putney House. It was built in 1901. This brick revival is the Lane Esbert House. It was built in 1842 with an addition in 1848. Lane was the organizer and officer of the Waukesha Woolen Mill. He served terms as village president, county board chairman, and assemblyman. Esbert was the mayor of Waukesha from 1914 to 1999 and was president of the First National Bank from 1919 to 38. Here was the next Waukesha post office, now known as the Rotunda. This classic revival was built in 1913 of limestone, and the architect is Oscar Wenderoth. Here we have the Arcadian Bottling Works. It was built in 1885 with additions in 1891 and 1977. This Queen Anne industrial building is made of limestone, and the architect is listed as Colonel Stevens B. Shipman. Here is the Charles Merton's house. This handsome Queen Anne was built in 1890. And right across the street is the Rest Haven Hotel. It is neoclassical in design and was built in 1905. The architect is Armin Cook. Its historic use is listed as nursing home sanitarium. Do you know of the Westtown Cobblestones? They are on the National Register, and they are the earliest houses in the Westtown subdivision, an early suburb of the city of Waukesha. The Maury Andres house was built in 1931. It is a bungalow with a craftsman style, and it's made of cobblestones from the nearby fields. Another example is the Maury Markham house, which was built in 1932. There are several cobblestone examples in the area. The builder is Paul Miller. As Waukesha became a well-known resort community and then transformed into a modern industrial center, the population increase caused a housing demand. The interurban tract connected this semi-rural farmland to the city. Since historic properties are 50 years and over, we are now moving into a whole new genre of the mid-century modern style. Here we have St. Mary's Catholic Church, and we also have the John and Margaret Moray House. The Landmarks Commission has several properties that are being surveyed to see if they can be added to the National Register. If you have a property that you would like to see on the register or one that would benefit from the protection of the local landmark status, please contact the Waukesha Community Development Department. Now we have our last benefit of historic preservation, and that is that it creates affordable housing. This happens using the historic tax credits. Those properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places or have a local landmark designation can apply for the historic tax credits. The award-winning Dex Stevens Wheeler House on Madison Street is utilizing those credits. This program encourages private sector investment in the rehabilitation and reuse of historic buildings. The historic tax credit allows participants to claim eligible improvement expenses against their income tax liability. The WPA educates and advocates for these tax credits. The latest tax reform retains a 20% federal historic tax credit, which is now phased over 5 years after the rehabilitation is complete. And a bipartisan effort, I'll grab some water here, saved a 20% Wisconsin historic tax credit. The historic tax credits actually generate revenue. For every $1 of tax credit, $1.25 goes directly back to the Federal Reserve. The study done in Wisconsin showed that by year 10 of operation, there's a 133% return on investment. It's important that people understand that the tax credits generate revenue. And there's just one more important property that I want to share with you. It is the Grandview Health Resort More Mud Baths. It's on the National Register and a local landmark. The county is currently trying to demolish the hotel building. The property is designated as an intact resort, which includes the hotel, golf course, clubhouse, and the spring house. Removal of the hotel building jeopardizes the historic designation on the property. There are developers interested in preserving the hotel building and redeveloping it. This would return the building to the tax rolls and generate revenue. The county was denied demolition by the City of Waukesha Landmarks Commission. The City Common Council upheld the Landmarks Commission decision in an appeal on February 2020. In March of 2020, Waukesha County then appealed that City of Waukesha's decision to the courts, and we are currently awaiting a court date. To see the facts from the appeal to the Common Council and to see the PowerPoint presentation about the significance of the property, you can watch the video. Simply go to the city calendar where it's listed for the Common Council meeting on February 11th of 2020. The PowerPoint starts at 2 hours and 35 minutes into the video. There are over 70 historic resources listed in Waukesha, and I squeezed in as many as I could, and we're just about out of time. So we'll have to save the many churches and the springs for another day. With all of that said, with the help of the Waukesha Preservation Alliance, historic properties that were once vacant now have new owners, and their places in Waukesha's past and present have not been lost. This is the Dr. Volney House, where it all began for me. The WPA was instrumental in having the brick on the tower stabilized until a buyer could be found. The brick is no longer in danger of falling off, and the owner is working on its restoration. The WPA truly works hard to build upon the foundations of Waukesha's history, and we are proud of our community and how we can help preserve it for the future. I've had the opportunity to be part of the WPA for the last 8 years. If you would like to get more information about our organization, or if you'd like to get involved, please visit the WPA website at waukeshapreservation.org or visit the Waukesha Preservation Alliance Facebook page. Before I go, I have to mention that Bonnie was awarded the 2021 John Shakeman Spirit of Preservation Award. This is for demonstrating exceptional achievement in an exemplary manner to further historic preservation. Congratulations, Bonnie. Well,
thank you very much.
And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and happy 125th anniversary, Waukesha.
What a fantastic presentation, Lisa. So much information that you presented. And like you said, we had a limited amount of time. There are so many more properties, especially church properties and the spring properties, but those are presentations unto themselves. So there have been a couple of questions dropped into the chat here for you. I wanted to start, though, with our good friend John Schenknecht, local historian, had asked about our house with no name, as well as then the houses that do have names. Why is it that some of the properties have two names associated with them, and then why no name for that other property?
That's a very good question. And sometimes it's well known who the builder was or who the person was that had it built. Then sometimes they sold it, and then that person was also pretty significant. So sometimes there's two names, sometimes there's three names, like the one up the road here. And for the ones that don't have a name, I don't know if perhaps they just need a little bit more research, or perhaps they wanted to remain anonymous. I don't know, but we'll have to, maybe we can ask the research department at the museum.
I was going to say, I know two for my house, by example. It is named after the gentleman and his wife who first built it, who first lived in the home. So often it's associated with that first owner or the most significant owner. Or if there are multiple notable people associated, that's where you get that two name. Two, and this is coming from the AHI inventory that Lisa mentioned, that architectural historic inventory. As that work was being done, sometimes the folks who were currently living in the house wanted to be memorialized in the listing. So they would add kind of their contribution in documenting it and associate their name with the house as well. So it's also a good way. A lot of the folks that we have coming in property research, one of the things that we often help them find are who are the property owners associated. So having that name association immediately makes life much easier. sometimes. Another question also coming from John, but I thought this was a good question. The National Hotel, is it still considered a landmark even though it was demolished?
That is a very good question, and I would have to do a little bit of research on that. I don't know for sure. How about you, Bonnie?
I would say that sometimes the site, even if the structure has gone, sometimes sites do retain their designations. The Sanger House, by example, I don't know that if you were to log on to the National Parks Registry for historic properties, you're still going to find that listing there, even though the property no longer exists. And part of that is that preservationists, we still want to maintain that historic record for properties, right? And at this point, because it physically doesn't exist anymore, we want to make sure that record and that designation does remain intact, even though we may have lost a physical structure to go with it.
We do have a chart at the Landmarks Commission, and it includes the property, and then in the last column, if it's been raised, there's an asterisk there. So it's still on the list, even though the building is gone.
Gone but not forgotten by any means. Lots of accolades. Congratulations to you, Lisa, on an excellent presentation. I would encourage folks, I dropped links in the chat, but do go to the waukeshapreservation.org website if you do want to get more involved. For those that enjoyed this presentation or in years prior, and hopefully in future too, enjoy those walking tours, enjoy those building tours. Everything that Waukesha Preservation Alliance does is driven by volunteers. So get involved, become a volunteer if you want to learn more. Again, waukeshapreservation.org, and you can reach out and contact the leadership of the organization. Mary Emery has been a driving force for that group for many, many years. Lisa, I am also involved with the Preservation Alliance, and we're always looking for more folks to help share these amazing resources that we have in the city.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I do not see any more questions coming through. So again, thank you so much, Lisa, for an incredible presentation. And to everyone watching, hopefully we have piqued your interest on historic properties here in the city. We have an incredible depth of resource. So get outside this summer sometime and enjoy those incredible properties that Lisa told you about today.
Thank you so much.